You know what's the worst thing about first contact? Commander Alex Hayes leaned against the viewport, staring at the swirling purple-green atmosphere of Proxima Centauri b below. The goddamn paperwork! Lieutenant Zoe Jackson snorted, not looking up from her tablet. Pretty sure the worst thing is discovering that we're the scary ones. That's just propaganda. Alex waved dismissively. The Galactic Council just doesn't want... Begged? That's not how I remember it. Zoe scrolled through another page of diplomatic protocols. Her dark eyes narrowed in concentration. I distinctly recall several mentions of containment and supervision in those early communications. Tomato, tomato. Alex pushed off from the viewport and floated across the observation deck. Zero-G never got old, no matter how many alien worlds they visited. If they were so concerned about containing us, why give us access to their tech? Because, came a third voice, raspy and pitched slightly too high for human comfort. You were going to get it anyway. Ambassador Vkr'lak slithered into the room, all 6 of his legs moving in a hypnotic pattern that still made Alex's brain hurt after 3 years of working together. The Arthan diplomat's translucent exoskeleton glimmered under the ship's lights, and his 4 eyes blinked in that unsettling, non-synchronized way that made most humans uncomfortable. Alex grinned. Eavesdropping again, Vkr'lak? I thought your people considered that rude. We consider many things rude, Commander. Fortunately, my extensive exposure to humans has lowered my standards considerably. The ambassador's mandibles clicked in what Alex had learned was laughter. And you are correct, though I would not admit this in official channels. Zoe finally looked up. Correct about what? That we feared you would acquire advanced technology regardless of our intervention. Vkr'lak moved to the viewport, his body swaying slightly. And that unregulated human advancement was deemed problematic. Alex shot Zoe a smug look. See, told you. That's not the same as begging us to join, Zoe countered. The Council does not beg, Vkr'lak said. We strategically accommodate. Sounds like fancy alien talk for begging to me, Alex muttered, earning another mandible click from the ambassador. Outside the viewport, the docking sequence with Proxima Station Alpha had begun. The massive ring structure, built by the Arthen but now jointly operated by 7 species including humans, slowly rotated against the backdrop of the alien planet. It had been 5 years since humanity had burst onto the galactic scene, and still, Alex couldn't believe they were here. Not that the journey had been smooth. First contact had been a clusterfuck of epic proportions. A Valkyrie scout ship accidentally detected by an amateur astronomer in New Zealand, followed by a panicked military response, followed by the scout ship easily disabling Earth's primitive defensive measures without firing a shot. The resulting global meltdown had been predictable. Panic, conspiracy theories, religious awakenings, and stock market crashes. What hadn't been predictable was the Galactic Council's response. Immediate diplomatic outreach, technology sharing, and an invitation to join their interstellar community, with conditions, of course. Approaching final docking sequence, announced the ship's AI in its irritatingly pleasant voice. All personnel prepare for artificial gravity transition. Alex sighed. And here comes the fun part. Vkr'lak's exoskeleton rippled in what might have been amusement. I still do not understand why your species finds gravity transitions so uncomfortable. It is merely a shift in physical constants. Says the creature whose ancestors evolved in variable gravity tidal pools, Zoe muttered, securing her tablet to her belt. Some of us come from a planet where gravity is boringly consistent. A design flaw in your world, Vkr'lak observed. Alex grinned despite the growing nausea as the ship's artificial gravity began its gradual increase. Earth has plenty of design flaws, but we made do. Indeed. Vkr'lak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Your species' ability to make do is precisely what concerns the Council. The Proxima Centauri diplomatic outpost wasn't much to look at. Utilitarian architecture with the barest nod to aesthetics. Arthen structures tended toward the practical, form-following function with mathematical precision that bordered on obsessive. The humans had added their own touches over the years. Potted plants from Earth, colorful wall hangings, and screens displaying landscapes from home that changed with Earth's seasons. The diplomatic team moved through the curved corridors toward the central chamber where representatives from the 7 council races were already gathered. As Earth's primary diplomatic liaison, Alex had been through this dance dozens of times, but it never got easier. Remember, Zoe murmured as they approached, the Valkyrie delegation is still sensitive about that mining rights incident in the Tau Ceti system. Don't mention it unless they do. I'm not an idiot, Alex replied, straightening the collar of his uniform. And the Threll ambassador? Ambassador Onik requested mineral water instead of the usual nutrient solution. Apparently they're experimenting with human hydration methods. Bold move. Last time a Threll tried coffee, they didn't sleep for a week. Kulvex, who had moved ahead, paused and turned. I must inform you that the Council has added another item to today's agenda. Alex felt his stomach sink, and not just from the gravity adjustment. Let me guess, the Mars colony expansion? The ambassador's mandibles twitched, a sign of discomfort. Not directly. The Council wishes to discuss humanity's reproductive tendencies. Zoe actually laughed out loud. Our what now? Your species' habit of establishing outposts and then multiplying at an alarming rate, Kulvex clarified, sounding genuinely concerned. The Mars colony was projected to reach 10,000 individuals by your year 2060. You have already exceeded 15,000. Alex shrugged. People like making babies, especially frontier people. It's kind of our thing. It is your thing that concerns us, Kulvex replied. No other council species expands at such rates. The mathematical projections for human population growth over the next century are troubling. Zoe's smile faded. We're not going to apologize for having children, Ambassador. No one is asking for apologies. Kulvex's voice took on the formal tone he used when communicating official council positions. Merely pet containment strategies. Alex felt his hackles rise. That word again. You know how we feel about containment. An unfortunate translation. Kulvex backpedaled. Perhaps sustainable growth guidelines would be more palatable? Not really, Alex said flatly. The door to the council chamber slid open before them, revealing the circular room with its 7 raised platforms, one for each council race. In the center was a smaller platform where petitioners and presenters stood. The lighting had been adjusted to accommodate the varied visual requirements of the assembled species, creating an otherworldly kaleidoscope effect. We will continue this discussion later, Kulvex said quietly, moving toward the Arthen platform. Damn right we will, Alex muttered, taking his place in the center of the room alongside Zoe. The formal introductions began, each species greeting in their native language before switching to Standard, a constructed language based primarily on mathematical principles that had become the lingua franca of interstellar diplomacy. Humans had taken to it surprisingly quickly, their brains apparently well suited to language acquisition, another trait that had both impressed and unnerved the Council. The Valkyrie representative, a towering humanoid with iridescent scales and unsettling vertical pupils, spoke first. We welcome our human colleagues and acknowledge their continued cooperation in matters of galactic security and trade. That was surprisingly cordial coming from the Valkyrie, who had been the most openly skeptical of humanity's inclusion in the Council. Alex inclined his head in the Valkyrie gesture of respect, right hand flat against the chest, slight forward tilt of the upper body. The United Earth government extends its gratitude for the Council's ongoing partnership. We come in the spirit of mutual advancement and understanding. The standard diplomatic pleasantries continued around the circle. The gelatinous Threll, who communicated through bioluminescent pulses translated by their devices. The avian Kirna, with their musical speech patterns. The silicon-based Domor, whose thought processes were so alien they required specialized AI intermediaries. The enigmatic Vel, who still hadn't revealed their true physical form and participated via robotic proxies. And finally, the ancient Morov, whose vast lifespans and slow metabolism made them appear almost statue-like during proceedings. Only after these formalities did the Arthen High Counselor gesture toward a holographic display that materialized in the center of the chamber. We have observed concerning patterns in human expansion, the Counselor began without preamble. The display showed the solar system, with pulsing red dots indicating human settlements. Earth, the Moon, Mars, multiple stations throughout the asteroid belt, and the research outposts on Europa and Titan. As you can see, the Counselor continued, in merely 5 years since contact, you have increased your extraterrestrial population by 78%. Alex exchanged glances with Zoe. They'd been expecting pushback on expansion, but not quite so directly. With respect, Counselor, Alex replied. The majority of these settlements were planned or already established before first contact. We've simply accelerated their development with the technologies you've shared with us. The Valkyrie representative leaned forward. That is precisely the concern, Commander Hayes. The rate of technological integration your species has demonstrated is unprecedented. You mean we're good students? Zoe interjected. We mean, The Threll ambassador's translation device pulsed. That you adapt and implement faster than safety protocols can be established. The Kirna representative trilled softly, their way of indicating caution or concern. We have observed 17 instances where human engineers have modified Council technology in ways not anticipated by the original designers. Improved, Alex corrected. We've improved the technology. Without understanding the full implications, the Morov representative spoke for the first time, their voice deep and resonant. Speed without comprehension leads to danger. Alex felt his patience wearing thin. With all due respect to the Council, humanity spent centuries developing technologies through trial and error. We understand the risks better than most. Do you? The Vel's robotic proxy tilted its featureless head. Your historical records indicate multiple instances where your technological advancement outpaced your ethical frameworks, resulting in weapons of mass destruction, climate disruption, and species extinction. Yes, Alex admitted. We've made mistakes, serious ones, but we've learned from them. Have you? The Valkyri's vertical pupils contracted to thin slits. Your Mars colony has already begun terraforming experiments without Council approval. Ah, so there it was, the real issue. The Mars terraforming project had been a point of contention for months. The Council had deemed it premature and potentially destabilizing to the local environment. Zoe stepped forward. The Mars experiments are contained and controlled. All data is being shared with Council scientists. After implementation, the Arthan counselor noted. Not before. Alex spread his hands in a gesture of openness. Earth's climate crisis taught us valuable lessons about environmental modification. The Mars project incorporates those lessons. The concern, Klevex interjected, is not merely environmental, but philosophical. Humanity approaches new worlds with the intent to reshape them to your needs, rather than adapting yourselves to existing conditions. And there it was, the fundamental difference in perspective that had been bubbling beneath the surface of human-alien relations since day one. The Council races, for all their technological prowess, were fundamentally conservative in their approach to new environments. Humans, by contrast, had evolved as world shapers, altering their surroundings rather than simply fitting into them. That's how we survived on Earth, Alex said simply. We didn't evolve poisonous barbs like the Valkyrie or silicon-based respiratory systems like the Domor. We had to change our environment to survive. And now you wish to change other worlds, the Morov representative observed. The worlds we're changing are lifeless rocks, Zoe pointed out. Mars has no indigenous ecosystem to protect. That is not the point, the Threll ambassador's lights pulsed rapidly. The concern is philosophical and predictive. If humans reshape lifeless Mars today, what prevents them from reshaping inhabited worlds tomorrow? A heavy silence fell over the chamber. There it was, the fear that had lurked beneath every diplomatic exchange, every technology-sharing agreement, every trade negotiation. The Council wasn't afraid of what humans were doing now. They were afraid of what humans might do in the future. Alex took a deep breath. This wasn't just about Mars or population growth or technology adaptation. This was about humanity's place in the galactic community and whether they truly had one. Let me be direct, he said, abandoning the diplomatic script entirely. The Council is concerned that humans are expanding too quickly, adapting too readily, and changing too much. You're worried that we won't play by rules established by species whose evolutionary paths were fundamentally different from our own. The chamber remained silent, which Alex took as confirmation. Here's what I propose, he continued. A joint oversight committee for human expansion projects, equal representation from Earth and the Council. Not to restrict our growth, but to ensure it happens in ways that address your concerns while respecting our nature. The Valkyrie representative hissed softly, their version of a skeptical snort. Your nature is the concern, Commander. Our nature, Alex countered, includes adaptation and compromise. We're not asking for unrestricted expansion. We're asking for understanding that our biological and cultural imperatives differ from yours. The Council members exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them that humans still couldn't fully interpret. Finally, the Arthan counselor spoke. We will consider your proposal. In the meantime, the Mars terraforming project will continue under enhanced monitoring protocols. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't a defeat either. In the complex dance of interstellar diplomacy, that counted as progress. Later, in what passed for a bar on Proxima Station, Alex sipped something that claimed to be whiskey but tasted more like alcoholic cough syrup. Across the table, Zoe nursed a synthesized beer while Clevex absorbed nutrients through a specialized port in his exoskeleton. That could have gone worse, Zoe observed. Could have gone better too. Alex swirled the amber liquid in his glass. They're still afraid of us. Clevex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Fear is perhaps too simple a term. There is concern. Same difference. Alex downed the rest of his drink, wincing at the aftertaste. They think we're going to rampage across the galaxy, reshaping worlds in our image. Are they wrong? Zoe asked quietly. Alex glanced at her sharply. Whose side are you on? Reality's side, she replied. Look at our history, Alex. We reshape environments. It's what we do. When we found the Americas, we transformed them. When we developed industry, we transformed Earth itself, not always for the better. And learned from those mistakes, Alex insisted. Did we? Zoe leaned forward. Or did we just export those problems outward as we expanded into space? Clevex's exoskeleton rippled in what Alex had come to recognize as deep thought. If I may offer an observation, the council races evolved differently than humans. Most achieved technological advancement only after reaching ecological equilibrium with their homeworlds. Whereas humans developed technology as a response to environmental challenges, Zoe added. Precisely. Clevex absorbed another nutrient packet. You developed your intelligence as a survival adaptation in an unstable environment. This makes you both incredibly resourceful and unpredictable. Alex signaled for another drink. So we're the scary ones because we're good at surviving? You are the scary ones, Clevex said with surprising directness. Because you never stop. The statement hung in the air between them, uncomfortable but undeniable. The Arthen reached space and established colonies on 3 nearby worlds, Clevex continued. Then we stabilized for 8 centuries before the next phase of expansion. This pattern is common among council races. But humans, Zoe mused, keep pushing outward. It is not merely physical expansion, Clevex added. Your technological development follows the same pattern. You do not perfect one system before developing the next. You iterate constantly, creating new versions before the previous ones are fully understood. Alex's new drink arrived. Something blue this time that smelled vaguely of cinnamon. Is that so bad? That drive is what got us to the stars. It is neither good nor bad, Clevex replied. It is simply different, and difference creates uncertainty. Zoe laughed suddenly. You know what's ironic? For centuries, our science fiction portrayed aliens as the invaders, the unstoppable force that would reshape Earth in their image. And now we find out we're the ones everyone else is worried about. Humanity, fuck yeah, Alex muttered into his drink. I do not understand that reference, Clevex said. It's a meme. Never mind. Alex took a sip of the blue concoction and immediately regretted it. Let's just say humans have a certain pride in being adaptable. Pride is understandable. Clevex's mandibles twitched. But perhaps caution would serve you better in galactic politics. Before Alex could respond, his comm unit buzzed. He checked the message and frowned. Problem? Zoe asked. Maybe. Alex stood. The Europa research team is reporting unusual activity in the subsurface ocean. Energy signatures that don't match known patterns. Clevex's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. The Council was not informed of energy detection capabilities on Europa. Could be nothing. Or it could be evidence of previously undetected life forms in Europa's ocean, Clevex said, rising to his full height, which would fall under Council First Contact protocols. If it's life, Alex emphasized. Right now, it's just weird energy readings. I will accompany you, Clevex said. It wasn't a request. Alex sighed. Fine, but this is just routine verification of anomalous data. As they left the bar, Zoe leaned close to Alex. You didn't tell me about Europa, she whispered. Didn't know myself until just now, he replied quietly. And I'm betting the Council doesn't need to know everything about every research project. That's exactly the attitude that worries them, you know. Yep, Alex said, quickening his pace. And that's exactly why we need to get to Europa before they start imposing more containment strategies. The transit to Europa took 3 days, faster than would have been possible with pre-contact human technology, but still agonizingly slow given the urgency Alex felt. Clevex remained politely insistent on accompanying them, which meant carefully navigating conversations about the Europa project. I still don't understand why the Council wasn't informed about these detection capabilities, the ambassador said as they approached Jupiter's orbital path. Alex, who had been reviewing the latest data from the research station, looked up. Because they're experimental. We've been testing new applications of Valkyrie sensor tech combined with Earth-developed algorithms. Unsanctioned hybridization of technologies, Klevex noted. Unsanctioned, unaffiliated, unauthorized. Alex ticked off on his fingers. Call it what you want. We call it innovation. Zoe shot him a warning look. What the commander means is that these are preliminary tests. If the results proved meaningful, we would have brought them to the Council's attention. And yet here we are, Klevex observed, investigating meaningful results that the Council is only now learning about. The ship's AI announced their approach to Europa, saving Alex from having to respond. The icy moon grew larger in the viewports, a cracked, ghostly white sphere against the massive backdrop of Jupiter. The research station wasn't visible from this distance, built as it was beneath the surface ice. Approaching Europa Research Station, the AI intoned. Preparing for subsurface docking sequence. Alex gathered his notes. The station is located 50 meters below the surface ice, with probe access to the subsurface ocean, home to 38 researchers and support staff. All human? Klevex asked. There's a Threll oceanographer, Zoe said, and 2 Kirna atmospheric specialists. The ship descended toward a barely visible opening in Europa's icy surface, a heat-maintained access shaft that led to the underground docking bay. As they passed through the outer doors, artificial lighting illuminated their path downward through layers of ancient ice. Beautiful, Zoe murmured, pressing a hand against the viewport. It was beautiful, Alex had to admit. The ice surrounding them contained swirls of mineral deposits, blues and ambers trapped in frozen patterns that seemed almost artistic in their complexity. The composition suggests periodic upwelling from the subsurface ocean, Klevex noted. These patterns would have formed over millions of years. And we're the first intelligent beings to see them, Alex said. Klevex's mandibles clicked, that you know of. The docking procedure completed without incident, and they were greeted by the station director, Dr. James Foster, a veteran of both Mars and Luna research outposts who had specifically requested the Europa assignment. Commander Hayes, Foster nodded, then turned to Klevex with visible surprise. Ambassador, we weren't expecting council representation. The ambassador was with us when the alert came through, Alex explained smoothly. Given the potential significance, it seemed appropriate to include council oversight from the beginning. Foster's expression suggested he understood the subtext. Of course. If you'll follow me, I'll brief you on what we've found. They moved through the station's curved corridors, designed to maximize structural integrity against the immense pressure of the ice above them. The walls gleamed with a pearlescent coating that Alex recognized as a Domore-developed insulation material, far more efficient than anything humans had created. Foster led them to a circular chamber dominated by holographic displays, showing real-time data from beneath the ice. Technicians moved around the space, adjusting settings and comparing readings. 3 days ago, Foster began, our deep probes detected unusual energy patterns in the subsurface ocean, approximately 12 kilometers below the ice shelf. The patterns were faint but organized in a way that suggested non-random distribution. He gestured, and one of the displays zoomed in on a swirling pattern of light points. These energy signatures pulsed in sequences that repeated every 73 seconds, with minor variations in intensity but consistent spacing. Klevex moved closer to the display, his 4 eyes focusing independently on different sections of the data. This resembles communication patterns observed in pre-sentient species on Valkyrie colony worlds. That was our assessment as well, Foster nodded, particularly when we detected this 24 hours ago. The display shifted to show a new pattern, this one more complex, with interconnected nodes of energy that seemed to pulse in coordinated sequences. It's responding to our probes, Foster said quietly. Whatever it is down there, it noticed us noticing it. Alex felt a chill that had nothing to do with Europa's icy surroundings. You're saying we've discovered indigenous life on Europa? I'm saying, Foster replied carefully, that we've detected organized energy patterns that respond to external stimuli in ways consistent with basic intelligence. This falls under Council First Contact protocols, Klevex said immediately. All research must cease pending a full Council assessment. Alex had expected this response, but it still irritated him. With respect, Ambassador, we don't even know what we're dealing with yet. It could be a natural phenomenon we don't understand. That responds to probes? Zoe raised an eyebrow. Many natural systems appear to respond to stimuli, Alex argued. That doesn't make them sentient. Foster cleared his throat. There's more. The energy patterns have been intensifying and moving. They're congregating toward our deepest probe, and they're organizing in increasingly complex formations. The display updated to show what looked like a swirling vortex of light points, pulsing in synchronized patterns that even to Alex's untrained eye appeared deliberately structured. How long until they reach the probe? He asked. At current speeds? Foster checked his data. 17 hours, give or take. Clevex's exoskeleton had taken on a deeper, more vibrant hue, a sign of agitation. I must contact the Council immediately. This discovery changes everything. It changes nothing until we know what we're dealing with, Alex countered. Ambassador, I understand the protocols, but we need more information before we bring in a full Council delegation. The protocols exist precisely for situations like this, Clevex insisted. Unknown life forms must be approached with caution and Council oversight. Alex felt his frustration building. We discovered these energy patterns. They're in our solar system, on a moon we've been studying since before we knew aliens existed. We have the right to continue our research. Rights, Clevex's mandibles clicked rapidly, are balanced by responsibilities. If these are indeed sentient beings, first contact must be handled with extreme care. And it will be, Alex assured him. But let's confirm what we're dealing with first. Zoe, who had been studying the displays quietly, suddenly straightened. They've changed pattern again. All eyes turned to the hologram, where the swirling energy points had indeed reorganized, no longer moving toward the probe, but forming concentric circles around it. They're containing it, Foster said softly. Or studying it, Zoe suggested, just as we're studying them. Clevex moved closer to the display. The pattern complexity has increased by approximately 40% in the last 3 minutes. They're learning, Foster nodded, adapting to our presence. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. If these energy patterns were indeed life forms, and if they were capable of rapid adaptation and learning. Commander, Clevex said formally, I must insist on Council involvement now. This situation has escalated beyond preliminary research. Alex knew the ambassador was right, but something made him hesitate. The Council's standard procedure for new life forms involved years of passive observation before any attempt at communication, years during which human research would be severely restricted. 12 hours, he said finally. Give us 12 hours to gather more data before we call in the Council. That's still 5 hours before they reach the probe. Clevex's 4 eyes blinked in that unsynchronized way that always unnerved Alex. 6 hours, and no attempts at direct communication. 10 hours, and we continue passive scanning only, Alex countered. 8 hours, final offer. Clevex's mandibles set in a firm line. Deal. Alex extended his hand, then remembered and switched to the Arthan gesture of agreement, a palm-up open hand. 8 hours of continued passive observation, then we contact the Council regardless of findings. Clevex mimicked the gesture. Agreed. 6 hours and 17 minutes later, everything went to hell. The first indication was a power fluctuation that rippled through the station, causing lights to dim momentarily before brightening again. Then the holographic displays flickered, distorted, and resolved into entirely new patterns. What just happened? Alex demanded, rushing back into the control room after grabbing a quick meal. Foster was already there, fingers flying over control panels. The energy patterns changed significantly about 30 minutes ago, becoming more organized, more concentrated. Then 3 minutes ago they interfaced with our probe. Interfaced? Zoe echoed. What does that mean exactly? They established some kind of energy connection with the probe's systems, Foster explained, not looking up from his work. There's no other way to describe it. They're exploring our technology. Clevex, who had been meditating in a corner of the room, rose to his full height. They have initiated contact. Not exactly, Foster corrected. They've established a connection with our probe, but there's no communication per se. Yet, Zoe added. The main display showed the probe's telemetry, a stream of data that was behaving in ways it shouldn't. System checks were running without being initiated. Sensors were cycling through their full range. Power systems were modulating in patterns that didn't match any programmed protocol. They're learning how it works, Alex realized, testing its capabilities, and sending data back to the station, Foster added grimly. That power fluctuation we felt, that was them following the probe's communication signal back to us. Clevex's exoskeleton had darkened to an almost black shade. We need to sever the connection immediately. Agreed, Alex nodded. Cut all links to the deep probe. Foster hesitated. Commander, this is unprecedented. We could learn. Cut the connection, Alex repeated firmly. That's an order, Doctor. Foster nodded reluctantly and began the shutdown sequence. Terminating all links to Deep Probe Epsilon in 3, 2, the lights went out. For several heart-stopping seconds, the control room was plunged into total darkness. Then emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Status report, Alex barked. Main power is offline, a technician responded. Emergency systems functioning at 82% capacity, attempting to identify cause. The probe connection, Foster said, his voice tight. It's still active, but changed. I can't terminate it from here anymore. Clevex moved to Alex's side. We must evacuate immediately and implement Council quarantine protocols. We're not abandoning this station, Alex countered, though a growing sense of unease was building in his gut. Commander, Zoe said quietly, pointing to the main display. The hologram had changed again. Instead of showing probe telemetry, it now displayed what appeared to be a three-dimensional model of the research station itself, rendered in pulsing points of light that matched the energy patterns they'd been observing. They're mapping us, Foster whispered. How is this possible? Clevex demanded. The technology required to remotely scan and model a structure through kilometers of ice exceeds even Council capabilities. No one had an answer for that. The display shifted again, zooming in on the station to show individual compartments, then focusing specifically on the control room. As they watched, points of light appeared within the rendered room, one for each person present. They can see us, Zoe breathed. Alex felt a cold sweat break out along his spine. Dr. Foster, initiate emergency evacuation procedures. All non-essential personnel to the transport ship immediately. Foster nodded and moved to a communication panel, but before he could reach it, the display changed again. The points of light representing people in the room began to pulse in specific patterns that matched the brainwave signatures displayed on their medical monitors. They're scanning our neural activity, Foster said, his voice barely above a whisper. Impossible, Clevex insisted, but even he sounded uncertain now. A new pattern formed on the display, a series of concentric circles that pulsed outward from a central point, like ripples in water. The pattern repeated 3 times, then paused, then repeated again. It's attempting communication, Zoe realized. Alex's mind raced. The situation had escalated far beyond what any first contact protocol, human or council, had prepared them for. Whatever these energy beings were, they had just bypassed years of careful observation and moved straight to direct engagement. Dr. Foster, he said carefully, do we have any way to respond using similar visual patterns? Commander, I must protest, Clevex interjected. Direct communication without council oversight violates all established protocols. With respect, Ambassador, Alex replied, not taking his eyes off the display. I think we're well past protocols at this point. Foster moved to a control panel. We can use the holographic system to generate response patterns, but what do we say? Mirror their pattern first, Zoe suggested. Show them we recognize their attempt to communicate. Foster nodded and programmed the system. A moment later, the same ripple pattern appeared alongside the original, pulsing in perfect synchronization. The response was immediate. The energy being's display changed, showing their ripple pattern and the human response pattern merging together, then expanding into a more complex series of interlocking circles. They understood, Foster said, excitement momentarily overwhelming his fear. Can we analyze these patterns? Alex asked. Try to establish some kind of basic symbolic communication? Working on it, Foster replied, fingers flying over the controls. I'm running pattern recognition algorithms based on known communication systems. Clevex moved closer to the display, his scientific curiosity apparently overcoming his diplomatic concerns. The complexity suggests a highly advanced sentience. These are not pre-sentient life forms as I initially theorized. For the next hour, they exchanged increasingly complex patterns with the energy beings. What began as simple geometric shapes evolved into mathematical sequences, then abstract concepts represented through pulsing light formations. They're learning exponentially, Foster marveled, adapting to our communication methods faster than we can adapt to theirs. The station's systems gradually came back online, but now they operated differently, more efficiently, as if they had been subtly redesigned from within. Commander, a technician called out, we're receiving a new transmission. It's different. The main display cleared, then filled with text, actual human language. We observe. We learn. You are different. Alex stared at the words, speechless for perhaps the first time in his diplomatic career. How did they learn our language so quickly? Zoe whispered. They've been scanning our neural patterns, Foster replied. Somehow they've mapped our language centers. Alex stepped forward. Can we respond in text? Foster nodded and set up a simple interface. Alex typed carefully. Who are you? The response came instantly. We are Europa. You are not like the others. Alex's fingers hovered over the controls. Others? The visitors before. They watched. They did not speak. Alex and Klevex exchanged glances. The council has been here before, Alex said quietly. And never told us. Klevek's exoskeleton rippled uneasily. I was not informed of previous contact. Alex turned back to the interface. What do you want from us? The being's response appeared slowly, one word at a time. Exchange. Growth. You reshape. We adapt. Together we become more. 3 days later, aboard the Proxima station, the emergency council session had devolved into barely controlled chaos. You deliberately violated first contact protocols, the Valkyrie representative hissed. After discovering that the council had already made contact and hidden it from us, Alex countered. The Europa entities confirmed that council ships have visited them 6 times over the past century. The Morov representative's stony features betrayed no emotion. Observation only, as protocols dictate. And you never thought to mention sentient energy beings in our own solar system? Zoe asked incredulously. They were deemed presentient, the Arthan counselor replied. Observation was ongoing. For 100 years, Alex said flatly, while they watched you watching them. They told us they've been waiting for someone who would actually communicate rather than just observe. Klevex, who had remained unusually quiet, finally spoke. The Europa entities specifically responded to humans. Their message was clear. They value humanity's approach to interaction and adaptation. The council chamber fell silent. The Europa collaboration proposal stands, Alex said into the silence. They want to work with us, with all of us, but they specifically requested human leadership of the project. Because humans rush in where others proceed cautiously, the Valkyrie representative said disapprovingly. No, Zoe corrected, because we weren't afraid to talk to them. The Kirna representative trilled softly. Perhaps there is wisdom in both approaches. Caution and engagement. Balanced. Slowly, reluctantly, the council began to discuss the practical details of establishing formal relations with the Europa entities. The Europans, as they were now being called, had shared tantalizing hints of technologies beyond even the council's understanding, particularly in energy manipulation and consciousness transfer. Later, in what was becoming their regular spot in the station's bar, Alex, Zoe, and Klevex sat in contemplative silence. You know what the real irony is? Alex said finally. The council was so worried about humans reshaping other worlds, they never considered that other beings might want to be reshaped. Or that they might reshape us in return, Zoe added. Klevex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. I believe the humans have an expression. It takes one to know one. Meaning? Alex raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Klevex's exoskeleton rippled in what might have been amusement. Perhaps the Europans recognized in humans what the council feared. Adaptability, curiosity, the drive to change and be changed. And perhaps they value these traits precisely because they share them. Alex raised his glass. To the scary ones, then. To adaptation, Zoe countered, raising her own. Klevex mimicked the gesture with his nutrient container. To becoming more. Together. As their glasses clinked, somewhere beneath the ice of a distant moon, patterns of light pulsed in what might have been laughter. The end. So you're telling me that humans, actual humans, just appeared in our system? In a warship? First Science Officer Clix's membranes pulsated with skepticism as he stared at the blurry long-range scans. That can't be right. They're supposed to be quarantined to their solar system for at least another century. Captain Zalara fluttered her sensory stalks in the tick-tick equivalent of an eye roll. Well, apparently they didn't get the memo. And yes, preliminary scans confirm it's definitely human in origin. It's practically leaking radiation signatures that scream made by primates who only recently discovered how not to poison their own atmosphere. The bridge of the Exalted Harmony, flagship of the Galactic Confederacy's 7th Exploratory Fleet, buzzed with nervous energy. Encountering humans wasn't on anyone's agenda today. The species had only been under observation for the past 80 planetary cycles, ever since they'd managed to accidentally broadcast their existence to the galactic community via something called reality television. Should we hail them? Asked Communications Officer Vektar, her appendages hovering uncertainly over the translator interface. Absolutely not, snapped Zalara. Protocol is clear. Observe, document, and report to the Council. No direct contact. Surveillance Officer Vkr'lak cleared his throat tubes. Captain? I think we may have a problem with the no direct contact part of the protocol. Why is that? Because they're hailing us. Lieutenant Commander Jackson Wolf of the United Earth Defense Force vessel UES Audacity leaned back in his captain's chair and grinned at the alien ship on the view screen. It resembled nothing so much as a metallic jellyfish with too many tentacles, wrapped in what appeared to be a series of iridescent glass bubbles. Any response to our hail yet, Lieutenant Okafor? He asked, drumming his fingers on the armrest. Communications Officer Amara Okafor shook her head, short braids swinging. Nothing yet, Commander, but they're definitely receiving. Their communication array just lit up like a Christmas tree. They're probably freaking out, said Navigator Lee from her station. According to the intel we swiped from that Grathori merchant vessel, we're not supposed to have faster-than-light capability for another 100 years or so. Wolf's grin widened. Well, I'd hate to disappoint our new friends. Keep hailing them, Lieutenant. Be polite, but make it clear we're not going anywhere until they respond. At the tactical station, Lieutenant Commander Dmitry Volkov snorted. I still say we should power up the railguns, just as a friendly hello. Down, boy, Wolf said, not taking his eyes off the alien vessel. We're here to make first contact, not start a war. First contact was made 50 years ago when they started monitoring our broadcasts, Volkov muttered. This is just us finally catching them in the act. Wolf ignored him. The Audacity was humanity's first true deep space warship, the culmination of decades of reverse engineering alien tech salvaged from crashed surveillance drones that Earth governments had been shooting down since the 2030s. Officially, those crashes were still classified as weather balloons and experimental aircraft. Unofficially, they'd given humanity a significant technological boost. They're responding, Okafor announced suddenly. Text only, being routed through what I think is a translation matrix. Put it on screen, Wolf ordered, straightening his uniform. The message appeared in blocky letters. Unidentified vessel. You have entered restricted space. Trespass in this sector is forbidden to species without Council approval. Please identify purpose and return to your system of origin. Wolf laughed out loud. Oh, that's rich. They're in a system 40 light-years from Earth, and they're telling us we're trespassing. He nodded to Okafor. Let's do a video response. Let them see what they're dealing with. On the Exalted Harmony, Captain Zalara's epidermis blanched pale yellow with stress as the human's face appeared on the communication display. The creature was distressingly symmetrical, with far too few sensory appendages and an alarming amount of exposed bone structure in what appeared to be its facial region. Greetings from the United Earth Defense Force, the human said, showing entirely too many teeth in what the xenopsychology briefings suggested was either a friendly gesture or a prelude to consumption. I'm Lieutenant Commander Jackson Wolf of the UES Audacity. We noticed you've been studying our planet for some time now, so we thought we'd save you the trip and come say hello in person. Zalara's gastric bladders clenched. This was diplomatic nightmare territory. The Monitoring Council had explicit protocols for pre-FTL species observation, and none of them covered what to do when said species showed up 50,000 light cycles from home in a warship. Engage emergency quarantine protocols, she ordered. I want a full scan of their vessel immediately. And someone get me the Council representative on subspace now. As the bridge crew scurried to comply, Surveillance Officer Vkr'lak hunched over his station, directing the ship's sensors toward the human vessel. What he saw made his respiratory membranes constrict in shock. Captain, he whispered, you need to see this. Zalara slithered over to his station, her lower appendages leaving a nervous trail of adhesive secretions on the deck plating. What is it? Vkr'lak's manipulator trembled as he pointed to the scan results. Their hull. It's made of processed planetary crust, metal alloys forged using primitive heating techniques. That can't be right, Zalara said, leaning closer. No spacefaring species would be foolish enough to— It gets worse, Vkr'lak interrupted, an unprecedented breach of protocol that indicated just how disturbed he was. Their propulsion system appears to be a crude fusion drive, but it's surrounded by what looks like kinetic weapon emplacements. And those are definitely missile tubes, primitive chemical-propelled explosives. Zalara's psychotropic patches flared with alarm pheromones. Are you telling me they've built a warship out of metal and filled it with explosives? Yes, Captain. And based on the radiation signatures, they're using unshielded nuclear material for power generation. A horrified silence fell over the bridge. They're insane, Zalara whispered. Completely, utterly insane. They're scanning us pretty thoroughly, Commander, reported Science Officer Tenzin, monitoring the sensor feeds. Focus particularly on our hull composition and weapons systems. Wolf nodded, unsurprised. Let them look. That's part of why we're here. The audacity was a marvel of human ingenuity and stubborn refusal to follow the expected technological path. After recovering alien materials that were almost impossibly light and strong, Earth scientists had conducted extensive testing, which revealed a critical weakness. The exotic alloys disintegrated when subjected to concentrated electromagnetic pulses at specific frequencies. So instead of copying alien designs, humanity had gone back to basics. The Audacity featured a double hull, an outer layer of traditional titanium steel alloy, surrounding an inner hull of carbon nanotube-reinforced graphene. Between the layers was a vacuum gap filled with a mesh of ferrofluid channels that could solidify instantly when energized, providing additional protection against impacts. The ship's weapons were similarly pragmatic. While they had adapted some alien technology for the faster-than-light drive, grudgingly after heated debate, the offensive systems were purely human in concept. Enormous coil guns that accelerated tungsten slugs to appreciable fractions of light speed, missile bays loaded with fusion-tipped warheads, and enough point defense lasers to make the ship bristle like a porcupine. They've gone silent again, Okafor reported. No response to our transmission. Tactical update? Wolf asked, glancing at Volkov. Their weapon systems, if that's what those bubble things are, remain dormant. No targeting locks detected. They've raised some kind of energy field, though. Probably defensive. Wolf scratched his chin thoughtfully. Interesting. They're scared, but not aggressive. He tapped his console. Let's try again, shall we? This time with a little more humanity. The human's face reappeared on the Exalted Harmony's main display. Captain Zalara noticed with mounting horror that the background now showed more of the ship's bridge, revealing humans casually operating near exposed metal surfaces, surrounded by what appeared to be burning plasma contained in transparent tubes. For illumination. Hello again, the human said cheerfully. I notice you're a bit hesitant to chat. I understand. First encounters can be awkward. So let me break the ice. We know you've been watching us for decades. We've recovered some of your drones. Nice tech, by the way, though a bit fragile for our taste. Zalara felt her primary heart stutter. They'd been shooting down observation drones, and then studying them? The level of technological contamination was catastrophic. Captain! First Science Officer Klix interjected urgently. Our scans indicate the humans are producing atmospheric contaminants inside their vessel. They appear to be consuming them. On the screen, the human commander was indeed raising some kind of container to its mouth. Steam, actual water vapor, a known corrosive, was emanating from the opening. Are they drinking heated dihydrogen monoxide? Klix asked incredulously. Voluntarily? Council protocols are useless here, Zalara decided, her voice hollow. We're dealing with something unprecedented. The human on screen continued, apparently oblivious to the existential crisis he was causing aboard the alien vessel. We propose a proper exchange of information. Cultural, scientific, whatever you're comfortable with. We're explorers too, after all. Just a bit more direct in our methods. As if to emphasize this point, another human in the background began manipulating what was unmistakably a projectile weapon, disassembling it for cleaning on an open workstation. The casual handling of such a device in a spacecraft made Zalara's vision swim with stress-induced disorientation. We need to respond, Communications Officer Vektar urged. The Council representative is still 2 hours from communication range, and these humans seem unpredictable. Zalara made a decision. Open a channel, visual feed only from their side. I don't want them seeing how distressed we are. Wolf smiled as the aliens finally responded, their message appearing as text while they kept their own visual feed dark. Human vessel Audacity. We are the Galactic Confederacy exploratory vessel Exalted Harmony. Your presence here violates numerous Galactic Council protocols. Your species has not been granted interstellar travel privileges. Please explain how you have acquired this technology and state your intentions. Well, that's progress, Wolf murmured. He nodded to Okafor to open the channel again. Captain of the Exalted Harmony, he began formally. We appreciate your response. As for how we acquired this technology, he shrugged casually. Let's just say when someone leaves their toys in your backyard, it's only natural to figure out how they work. As for our intentions, purely diplomatic. We're here to formally introduce ourselves to the galactic community you've been hiding from us. He paused, then added with deliberate nonchalance. Of course, We're also interested in understanding why our planet has been under surveillance without our consent. On Earth, we generally consider that sort of thing rather rude. Volkov snorted from the tactical station. That's one word for it. Wolf shot him a warning glance before continuing. We propose a face-to-face meeting. Your ship or ours, your choice. We come in peace, but we'd appreciate being treated as equals. The response, when it came, seemed distinctly more agitated. Face-to-face meeting inadvisable. Biological incompatibilities. Atmospheric requirements divergent. Your vessel contains numerous hazardous materials and designs prohibited by Council safety regulations. Query: Are you aware your ship could explode? Wolf couldn't suppress a laugh. Are we aware our ship could explode? Of course we are. We built it that way. In the privacy of the command alcove, away from the main bridge, Captain Zalara convened an emergency meeting with her senior officers. This is unprecedented, she said, her voice modulated to prevent panic. According to all our observations, humans shouldn't have achieved faster-than-light travel for at least another century. Their technological development was proceeding along a predictable path. Evidently not that predictable, First Science Officer Clicks remarked dryly. They've leapfrogged entire developmental stages, and their approach to spacecraft design is, and he searched for an appropriate term, terrifying. I've completed a more thorough analysis of their vessel, Surveillance Officer Grack reported, his voice hollow with shock. They've constructed a ship that by all reasonable standards should not function in space. The hull materials are vulnerable to cosmic radiation. Their life support systems appear to be mechanical rather than biosynthetic. And their weapons... He projected a holographic schematic of the human vessel, highlighting what appeared to be enormous tubes running the length of the ship. These are some kind of mass drivers. They use electromagnetic acceleration to propel solid metal projectiles at velocities approaching 0.1 c. No guidance systems, no energy matrices, just hunks of refined metal moving very, very fast. That's barbaric, gasped Vektar. The kinetic energy alone would shatter any conventional shield and penetrate most hull materials known to the Confederacy. Grack finished grimly. It's so primitive that our defense systems aren't designed to counter it. They're optimized for energy weapons and guided projectiles, not high-velocity metal slugs. Captain Zalara's chromatophores pulsed with distress. And their power source? Fusion reactors. Relatively clean by their standards, but operated with safety margins that would give any Council engineer immediate cardiac arrest. They're essentially containing small stars in magnetic bottles, with backup systems that appear to be mechanical switches. The officers collectively shuddered. Their communication officer is ingesting a substance that contains both caffeine and sucrose, added Clicks. Simultaneously, for pleasure. Sweet galaxy, whispered Zalara. What are we dealing with here? A species that evolved on a death world, Clicks said simply. Our xenobiologists theorize this, but seeing the evidence firsthand is jarring. Earth has extreme temperature variations, crushing gravity by Confederacy standards, regular exposure to harmful solar radiation, and constant meteorological chaos. The humans have evolved accordingly. They're durable, adaptable, and apparently comfortable with levels of risk that we find unthinkable. And now they're here, Zalara said, in a ship that fundamentally shouldn't work, armed with weapons we can barely defend against, demanding diplomatic recognition. A heavy silence fell over the group. We need to stall until the Council representative arrives, Zalara decided finally. And we need to learn more about what they want, if they're hostile. The unspoken implication hung in the air. If humans were hostile, the Confederacy might be facing a threat unlike any they had encountered before. They're stalling, Wolf said, checking the chronometer on his display. The aliens had promised a more detailed response after consultation, but that had been over an hour ago, probably waiting for backup or instructions from higher up. Can't really blame them, Lee commented from the navigation station. We did just shatter their whole worldview about us. More like their whole humans are primitive view, Volkov corrected. The look down your nose at the primitives worldview. Wolf drummed his fingers on the armrest of his chair. The Audacity's mission had multiple objectives, only some of which had been shared with the crew. The official purpose was to establish first contact and begin formal diplomatic relations with the galactic community. Unofficially. Lieutenant Okafor, are you still picking up those data transmissions from their vessel? He asked. Okafor nodded, not looking up from her console where streams of alien code scrolled past. Yes, Commander. They're broadcasting on multiple subspace frequencies. probably calling for help or guidance. Our translation AIs are making progress, but it's slow going. What about the targeted data extraction? At this, Okafor looked up with a slight smile. The passive scoop is working perfectly, sir. Every time they scan us, our systems are skimming data from their return signals. It's like reading over someone's shoulder while they're writing about you. This was the true secondary objective of the mission: intelligence gathering. Earth's governments had unanimously agreed that humanity needed to understand the full picture before formally joining any galactic civilization. If they were going to be the new kids on the block, they wanted to know the rules, and more importantly, which ones they could bend. Any interesting findings? Wolf asked, keeping his tone casual in case the aliens were monitoring their communications. Their technology base is fundamentally different from ours, Science Officer Tenzin reported from his station. They prioritize biological and synthetic organic technologies over mechanical and electronic systems. Their computing appears to be some kind of quantum-entangled crystalline structure rather than silicon-based. Weapons assessment? Wolf directed this to Volkov. The tactical officer shrugged. Hard to tell. Their ship has energy projectors that could be weapons, or could be scientific instruments. No obvious missile tubes or kinetic weapons. Their defenses appear to be layered energy fields rather than physical armor. He paused. Bottom line? Different philosophy entirely. They've gone high-tech in areas where we've stayed relatively low-tech, and vice versa. Complementary strengths, Wolf mused. Interesting. The view screen flickered, indicating an incoming transmission. Finally, Wolf said. Put them through, Lieutenant. Captain Zalara had spent the interceding time in communication with her fleet admiral, who had in turn consulted with available council representatives. The instructions she'd received were clear, if not particularly helpful. Maintain contact, gather information, avoid provocations, and under no circumstances allow humans aboard the Exalted Harmony until proper quarantine protocols could be established. The trouble was, the humans didn't seem like the patient type. Captain of the human vessel Audacity, she began, still keeping the visual feed one way. The Galactic Confederacy acknowledges your desire for diplomatic exchange. However, your unexpected appearance raises significant procedural questions that must be addressed before formal relations can be established. The human commander, Wolf, he had called himself, nodded on screen. Understandable. Bureaucracy seems to be a universal constant, but perhaps we can move things along with a gesture of good faith from our side. This was unexpected. Zolara's sensory stalks quivered with cautious interest. What do you propose? We've prepared a data package containing basic information about Earth, human physiology, and our cultural and political structures. Nothing classified, just the sort of welcome to humanity introduction we'd offer any new friends. Would you be willing to accept this as a first step? Zolara conferred quickly with her science and security officers. The offer appeared genuine, and accepting a data transmission posed minimal risk compared to physical contact. We would be amenable to such an exchange, she responded carefully. Our protocols allow for information sharing of this nature. Excellent, the human said, showing those disconcerting teeth again. We'll transmit on a frequency compatible with your systems, and to show our peaceful intentions, we're powering down our active scanning arrays and retracting our weapon ports. On her tactical display, Zolara saw confirmation that the human vessel was indeed reconfiguring itself, missile tubes disappearing behind hull plating, and the ominous mass driver barrels retracting into the ship's superstructure. It was a significant de-escalation gesture. We appreciate this demonstration of goodwill, she acknowledged, feeling some of the tension drain from her body. Perhaps this encounter could be salvaged after all. Incoming data transmission, reported Communications Officer Vektar. Compatible format, no detectable malware or viruses. Routing to isolated systems for analysis. The first images began appearing on secondary screens. Views of Earth from orbit, showing swirling white clouds over blue oceans and green-brown continents. Accompanying text described basic planetary statistics. Gravity, atmospheric composition, temperature ranges. Then came biological information about humans themselves. Zolara found herself simultaneously fascinated and horrified. These beings had evolved as persistence predators, capable of regulating their body temperature through controlled water evaporation from specialized glands. They could sustain damage to almost any single organ and survive. Their bones could break and then heal themselves. They routinely ingested mild toxins for pleasure. Their biochemistry could synthesize vitamin D from solar radiation, the very radiation that would damage their cellular structures. They're walking contradictions, muttered Science Officer Clicks, reviewing the data. Fragile yet resilient. short-lived but adaptable enough to offset their brief lifespans with rapid innovation. And then came the historical and cultural information. Images of human conflicts throughout their history, from primitive tribes wielding sharpened sticks to global wars employing mechanized armor and aircraft. The development of nuclear weapons, followed not by extinction but by an uneasy peace maintained by the threat of mutual annihilation. They developed nuclear weapons before achieving spaceflight? Zalara couldn't keep the shock from her voice. And they're still here? More than that, Click said, his voice hushed with a reluctant sort of awe. They tested these weapons on their own planet, multiple times, in different environmental conditions, to collect data. The final segment of the transmission contained artistic and cultural samples. Music, literature, art, and philosophy. The range was bewildering, from breathtaking beauty to deliberate dissonance, from uplifting moral frameworks to nihilistic despair. They contain multitudes, Vektar observed. Such contradiction, such intensity. Zalara found she couldn't disagree. The humans were paradoxical in a way that defied easy categorization. And that made them unpredictable, which made them dangerous. They're reviewing our data package, Okafor reported. And they're absolutely fixated on it. Their ship's processing resources are heavily allocated to analyzing what we sent. Wolf nodded, pleased. While the data package contained exactly what he'd promised, a genuine introduction to humanity, it had been carefully curated to emphasize certain aspects of human nature. Their resilience, their resourcefulness, their willingness to fight when cornered, their history of overcoming overwhelming odds. The subtext was clear to anyone reading between the lines. Humans might be newcomers to the galactic stage, but they were not to be underestimated. Any response yet? He asked. They're composing something now, Okafor replied. Text only again. The message appeared on screen. Human vessel Audacity. We acknowledge receipt of your informational package. It provides valuable context for understanding your species. We are prepared to reciprocate with basic information about the Galactic Confederacy and the Galactic Council. Query. Your technological capabilities appear to have advanced beyond our most recent assessments. Would you clarify how this acceleration occurred? Wolf smiled thinly. There it was, the question they'd been dancing around. How had humanity gotten here so fast? Open a channel, Lieutenant. When Okafor nodded, he addressed the alien vessel directly. Captain of the Exalted Harmony, thank you for your willingness to share information. We look forward to learning more about your civilization and this Galactic Council you mention. He paused, considering how to frame the answer to their query. The truth was complex and potentially provocative. As for how we accelerated our development, let's just say necessity is the mother of invention. When we realized we weren't alone in the universe, and that we were being observed without our knowledge or consent, we became highly motivated to catch up. He leaned forward slightly. The recovery and analysis of crashed observation drones provided useful technological insights, certainly. But the real catalyst was simply knowing you existed. Humanity has always risen to challenges, especially when told something is impossible. They reversed engineered our technology, Click said, his voice faint with disbelief. From crashed observation drones, minimal samples of advanced technology, and they just figured it out. Not entirely, Grak countered, examining the scan results more carefully. They've adapted some principles but implemented them in their own way. Their faster-than-light drive incorporates elements we recognize, but the containment systems and power regulation are entirely of their own design, and much of their ship remains stubbornly human. Captain Zalara considered the implications. A species that could take scattered pieces of advanced technology, decode the underlying principles, and then implement those principles using their own technological infrastructure was not merely adapting, they were innovating, perhaps even improving. We should proceed with the information exchange, she decided. But carefully. They've shown they can make remarkable leaps of understanding from limited data. As her crew prepared a sanitized overview of the Galactic Confederacy and the broader galactic political structure, Zalara found herself wondering what the Council would make of humanity. The established species of the galaxy had achieved a certain equilibrium, with technological development proceeding along predictable, regulated paths. New species were carefully monitored and gradually introduced to the galactic community once they had achieved the necessary developmental milestones. Humans had just shattered that paradigm completely. The prepared information package was transmitted to the Audacity. It contained basics about the Tik-Tik, a silicon-based species evolved from colony organisms in the tidal pools of their homeworld, along with a simplified overview of the Galactic Council, an association of 27 spacefaring species that coordinated exploration, trade, and diplomatic relations throughout this sector of the galaxy. Notably absent was any detailed information about military strength, technological specifications, or the locations of major population centers. The Council had strict protocols about information security, and Zalara had no intention of violating them. The human commander's response was swift and direct. "Thank you for this information," Wolf said, his expression revealing nothing of whether he found the data package satisfactory or suspiciously limited. "It gives us a starting point for understanding our new neighborhood. Now, I believe it's time we discuss the actual reason for our visit." Zalara felt her chromatophores pulse with apprehension. "And what reason is that, Commander Wolf?" The human's expression turned serious. 2 standard Earth months ago, one of our deep space outposts detected unusual activity at the edge of our solar system. A large vessel, not matching any known Earth design, appeared briefly before moving away at speeds our sensors could barely track. He leaned forward. "This vessel wasn't one of your observation craft. It was something else entirely. Something that, based on the limited readings we obtained, matches descriptions in your data package of a species called the Vkr'lak." Zalara felt her primary heart stutter. The Vkr'lak were a predatory species from the Outer Rim, notorious for their territorial aggression and disdain for Council regulations. They weren't officially at war with the Council races, but relations were perpetually strained. "That's concerning," she admitted cautiously. "The Vkr'lak do not typically venture into this sector. Their presence near your system would be unusual." "So they are bad news," Wolf said, his voice hardening. "We suspected as much from their behavior. They made no attempt at communication, and when our outpost tried to hail them, they fired some kind of energy weapon that disabled its communications array before departing." This was definitely alarming. Unprovoked attacks were a serious violation of Council space law, even against non-member species. "Commander Wolf," Zalara said carefully, "if what you're describing is accurate, this represents a significant escalation in Vkr'lak's behavior. I would need to report this immediately to my superiors." "By all means," Wolf replied. "But while you're doing that, you should know that our long-range sensors have detected another vessel with similar signatures approaching this system. Estimated arrival time, approximately 6 hours from now." The bridge of the Audacity hummed with tension as Wolf watched the aliens process this new information. The revelation about the Vkr'lak wasn't entirely truthful. There had been an unidentified contact near Jupiter's orbit, but the details had been significantly embellished for strategic purposes. Earth's intelligence agencies had pieced together enough information from recovered alien technology to identify several distinct design philosophies and species signatures. The Tic-Tic were one. Another, featuring aggressive energy signatures and predatory vessel configurations, had been tentatively labeled Species Delta. Learning that these matched the Vkr'lak was valuable intelligence in itself. "Think they bought it?" Volkov murmured, quietly enough that the open channel wouldn't pick it up. Wolf gave a minimal nod. The plan had always been to create a scenario that would force the aliens to choose between treating humans as partners or leaving them vulnerable to a perceived common threat. Nothing built alliances like shared enemies. On screen, the text response from the Tic-Tic appeared. "Commander Wolf, your information is deeply concerning. Vkr'lak incursions into protected space violate multiple Council treaties. We are elevating this situation to highest priority and requesting additional Confederacy vessels for support." Query: what evidence can you provide of this Vkr'lak encounter and the approaching vessel? "Lieutenant Tenzin," Wolf said, "please transmit the sensor logs from Jupiter Outpost Gamma showing the unidentified contact, along with our long-range detection of the approaching vessel." The science officer complied, sending carefully doctored data that would pass casual inspection. The approaching vessel was real enough. Their own sister ship, the UES Intrepid, scheduled to arrive as planned to reinforce the diplomatic mission. Its energy signature had been subtly altered in the transmitted data to match what they now knew were Vkr'lak patterns. "Transmitting now, Commander," Tenzin confirmed. Wolf addressed the aliens again. "We understand your caution, Captain. In your position, I'd want verification too. But I hope you also understand that from our perspective, this situation is deeply troubling. Earth has only just begun to venture into interstellar space, and already we've encountered potential hostility." He allowed a calculated note of suspicion to enter his voice. "One might even wonder if our planet was deliberately left unprotected and uninformed about galactic politics, despite being under observation for decades." Captain Zalara felt caught in an impossible position. The human's insinuation was clear, and not entirely unfounded. The Council's non-interference protocols with pre-FTL species were designed to allow natural development, But they also effectively left emerging civilizations vulnerable to less scrupulous actors like the Vreks. Our observation protocols are designed for protection as much as study, she explained, finally activating a one-way visual feed so the humans could see her. The psychological advantage of remaining unseen was outweighed by the need to establish some level of trust. The human commander didn't visibly react to her appearance, eight-limbed with an iridescent exoskeleton and multiple sensory stalks, which she found both surprising and somewhat reassuring. Perhaps their first contact protocols were better developed than expected. The Galactic Council maintains a policy of non-interference until species reach certain developmental milestones, she continued. This is meant to prevent cultural contamination and allow natural technological progression. With respect, Captain, Wolf responded. Non-interference becomes a problem when others don't play by the same rules. If these Vreks are as dangerous as your reaction suggests, then your Council's policy has effectively left Earth defenseless against a threat we weren't even aware of. It was a pointed argument, and one Zalara couldn't easily refute. The Council's policies assumed all spacefaring races would abide by the same ethical standards. The Vreks had always existed in a gray area, officially bound by treaties but frequently skirting their obligations. Your point is taken, Commander, she acknowledged. These circumstances are unprecedented. If Vreks vessels are indeed operating near your system, that represents a serious situation. She paused, then added, I've transmitted your information to my fleet command. They're dispatching additional vessels to this location as a precautionary measure. On her tactical display, confirmation appeared that 3 more Confederacy ships were indeed diverting to their coordinates. The Council was taking the threat seriously, even if the human evidence was still being verified. In the meantime, she continued, I propose we establish a joint defensive posture. Our vessels have complementary capabilities that could be effective against Vreks tactics. It was a significant concession, offering military cooperation to a species that, until hours ago, had been considered primitive enough to require observation rather than engagement. But the alternatives were worse. Either abandon the humans to a potential Vreks incursion, or face the Vreks alone, while the humans remained an unpredictable variable. Joint defensive posture accepted, Wolf replied immediately. We'll transmit our tactical capabilities and suggested coordination protocols. 6 hours later, the bridge of the Audacity was a hive of controlled activity. The Tick-Tick had proven surprisingly adaptable once they'd moved past their initial shock. 3 additional Confederacy vessels had arrived, elegant, organic-looking ships that resembled blown glass sculptures more than military craft, and formed a loose defensive formation with the Exalted Harmony. The Audacity maintained a position slightly apart, its weapons systems fully operational but not actively targeting anything, a delicate balance of trust and caution. Incoming vessel will enter detection range in approximately 10 minutes, announced Navigator Lee. The Tick-Tick have confirmed they're tracking it as well. Wolf nodded, outwardly calm despite the tension thrumming through his body. The approaching ship was indeed the Intrepid, right on schedule. What happened next would determine the success or failure of humanity's unorthodox introduction to galactic society. Lieutenant Okafor, he said quietly, send the recognition codes to the Intrepid. Authorization Prometheus. Transmitting now, sir, she confirmed, equally subdued. The plan had been months in development. The Intrepid would arrive appearing to all sensors as a Vreks vessel, a ruse made possible by careful study of recovered alien technology, and enhanced by the information they'd gleaned from the Tick-Tick during this encounter. It would make aggressive movements, forcing the Tick-Tick to commit to either defending the humans or abandoning them. Then, at the critical moment, the Intrepid would reveal itself as a human vessel, demonstrating both humanity's technological capabilities and their willingness to use deception when necessary. It was a calculated risk, one that might alienate the Tick-Tick entirely, but Earth's leadership had deemed it essential to establish humanity's position from a place of strength rather than supplication. Sir, Volkov called from tactical, genuine alarm in his voice. We're picking up another ship entering the system. Different vector from the Intrepid, much larger energy signature. Wolf's head snapped up. Classification? Unknown, sir, but it matches the partial profiles we have for species Delta, the actual Vreks. A chill ran down Wolf's spine. This wasn't part of the plan. Confirm that, Lieutenant. Could it be a sensor ghost or echo? Negative, Commander. Multiple confirmation on all bands, and the Tick-Tick vessels are reacting. They've shifted formation and powered up weapon systems. On the main screen, a transmission from the Exalted Harmony appeared. Commander Wolf, Vreks battlecruiser detected entering system. This vessel class is designated as highly dangerous. Recommend immediate defensive protocols. Well, shit, Wolf muttered, then straightened in his chair. Red alert! Battle stations! And get me the Intrepid on a secure channel, now! Aboard the Exalted Harmony, chaos had given way to disciplined emergency action. Captain Zalara moved with practiced efficiency despite the unprecedented situation, coordinating with the newly arrived Confederacy vessels to establish a defensive perimeter. The Vkr'lak battlecruiser is on a direct approach vector, reported Tactical Officer Mrek, who had replaced Grak when the additional ships arrived, bringing specialized military personnel. Weapon systems active but not yet targeting. Their configuration suggests they're conducting wide-area scans. They haven't detected us yet, Zalara concluded. The stellar radiation from this system's primary is masking our signatures temporarily. What about the human vessel? Asked Fleet Commander Zeev, who had arrived with the reinforcements and now shared command authority. They've powered up weapon systems and assumed a defensive posture, Mrek replied. Rather effectively, I might add. Their positioning suggests they're familiar with coordinated fleet tactics, despite claiming to be new to interstellar travel. Zalara's sensory stalks twitched with unease. The humans had been suspiciously well prepared throughout this encounter. First appearing in Confederacy space unannounced, then revealing knowledge of the Vkr'lak, and now displaying military coordination that belied their supposed inexperience. The second vessel, the one the humans warned us about, is still approaching as well, Mrek continued. Definitely Vkr'lak design characteristics, but smaller. Scout class, most likely. Fleet Commander Zeev chittered thoughtfully. 2 Vkr'lak vessels operating separately? That's unusual. They typically hunt in coordinated packs. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Vektar. Incoming transmission from the human vessel. Commander Wolf's face appeared on screen, his expression grim. Captain Zalara, we have a situation. The approaching vessel we detected earlier is not a Vkr'lak ship as we believed. It's another human vessel, the UES Intrepid. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Explain, demanded Fleet Commander Zeev, his battle carapace flushing angry crimson. There's no time for a full explanation, Wolf responded sharply. What matters now is that we have an actual Vkr'lak battlecruiser bearing down on us, and we need to coordinate our response. The Intrepid is 2 minutes from rendezvous position and ready to support defensive operations. Zalara and Zeev exchanged looks laden with unspoken communication. The humans had clearly been operating under false pretenses, but the Vkr'lak threat was very real, and took priority over diplomatic recriminations. We will discuss your deception once this crisis is resolved, Commander, Zeev said coldly. For now, we will coordinate defensive measures. The Vkr'lak must not be allowed to engage either of our forces. Wolf nodded curtly. Agreed. Transmitting our tactical capabilities now. Let's make this quick. They'll detect us any moment. As the Intrepid slid into formation alongside the Audacity, Wolf allowed himself a moment of grim appreciation for the universe's sense of irony. They had fabricated a Vkr'lak threat as a diplomatic gambit, only to have an actual Vkr'lak warship appear out of nowhere. Status of the battlecruiser? He demanded. Still on approach vector, Volkov reported. Weapons powered but not targeting. They appear to be conducting standard sweep patterns. Wait! He paused, studying his displays. Energy spike. They've spotted us. Incoming transmission, Okafor announced. From the Vkr'lak vessel. The view screen flickered, and a new alien appeared. Unlike the insectoid Tik-Tik with their iridescent exoskeletons and multiple limbs, the Vkr'lak commander resembled nothing so much as a bipedal reptile with a heavy brow ridge and vertically slitted pupils. Its scales shimmered with a metallic iridescence, and multiple gold rings pierced the cartilage around its jaw. Confederacy vessels, the Vkr'lak commander hissed, its translator rendering the words with a sibilant quality. You trespass in space claimed for hunting by the Vkr'lak Dominion. Its gaze shifted, faceted eyes narrowing as they fixed on Wolf. And what do we have here? A new species, aligned with the Confederacy? How disappointing. We had hoped to find you first. A chill ran down Wolf's spine at the predatory interest in those alien eyes. The implication was clear. The Vkr'lak had indeed been aware of Earth, perhaps even planning their own first contact under very different circumstances. Before he could respond, Captain Zalara's transmission cut in. Vkr'lak vessel, you are in violation of Council space. This system falls under protected observation protocols as ratified in the 7th Concord. Withdraw immediately. The Vkr'lak commander made a sound that might have been laughter. The Concord applies to signatory races, Tik-Tik. The Dominion merely acknowledges it when convenient. Its attention returned to Wolf. Humans, is it not? Your world has been of interest to us for some time. Such fascinating potential. Whatever you're selling, we're not buying, Wolf responded flatly. Earth is under its own protection, and now apparently the Confederacy's as well. I suggest you take the captain's advice and withdraw. The Vrex's jaw ridges flared in what might have been amusement. Bold words from a species that has only just learned to leave its cradle. Perhaps you should ask your new Confederacy friends about their true intentions for your world, about the containment protocols and development restrictions they had planned for your kind. Commander, they're powering up weapons, Volkov warned. Targeting spread across all our vessels. Wolf made a split-second decision. All ships, evasive pattern Delta. Intrepid, execute fire plan Baker on my mark. The coordinated movement of the human vessels seemed to surprise the Vrex commander momentarily. It clearly hadn't expected this level of tactical coordination from a supposedly novice spacefaring race. Last warning, Wolf stated firmly. Withdraw or face the consequences. The Vrex commander's expression shifted to one of predatory anticipation. We do not retreat from prey, human. The Dominion will— Mark! Wolf ordered. The Audacity and Intrepid fired in perfect synchronization. Not the energy weapons the Vrex might have expected, but their massive coil guns, launching tungsten penetrators at a significant fraction of light speed directly at the Vrex battlecruiser's primary weapon emplacements. In the vacuum of space, the impacts were eerily silent but visually spectacular. The kinetic penetrators shattered against the Vrex shields, creating cascading energy flares. But unlike energy weapons that could be fully absorbed by such defenses, the physical momentum carried through. The Vrex ship visibly shuddered, its firing solution disrupted. Before it could recover, the Tick-Tick vessels launched their own attack. Streams of what appeared to be liquid energy engulfed the Vrex shields, creating interference patterns that caused them to fluctuate wildly. Their shields are destabilizing, reported Volkov with professional satisfaction. Our primitive kinetic weapons appear to be giving their fancy defenses some trouble. The Vrex responded with a barrage of energy weapons, but the human ships had already changed position. Their thrusters firing in patterns that no AI could easily predict, because they were being guided by human pilots trained to introduce controlled randomness into their evasive maneuvers. Several bolts of coherent energy struck the Audacity's hull, leaving scorch marks on the outer plating but failing to penetrate. Hull integrity at 97%, reported Engineering Officer Kowalski over the intercom. The layered armor is holding. Those hits barely got through the first ablative layer. The battle continued for several minutes. A deadly dance of human unpredictability and kinetic weapons complementing Confederacy energy manipulation and shield technology. The Vrex battlecruiser, while powerfully armed, found itself unable to effectively target either the erratically moving human vessels or the Tick-Tick ships with their organic adaptive shielding. They're powering up their drive system, Volkov announced suddenly. I think they're preparing to withdraw. Sure enough, the Vrex battlecruiser began to pull away, still firing covering barrages but clearly executing a strategic retreat. Should we pursue? Asked the Intrepid's captain over the tactical channel. Negative, Wolf replied. Let them go. We've made our point. As the Vrex ship accelerated away, eventually disappearing in a flash of distorted space-time, a strange silence fell over the bridge of the Audacity. Well, said Lieutenant Lee from the navigation station, that wasn't exactly how first contact was supposed to go, was it? A ripple of nervous laughter broke the tension. Actually, Wolf said thoughtfully, it might have gone better than we planned. 2 days later, Commander Wolf sat in a hastily constructed conference room aboard the Exalted Harmony. The space had been adapted to accommodate human biological needs, with appropriate atmosphere mix and gravity settings. Across from him sat Captain Zalara, Fleet Commander Zeev, and a holographic projection of a Galactic Council representative, a being composed seemingly of pure light that identified itself as Emissary Telnar. The Council has reviewed the complete record of events, the emissary was saying, its voice resonating without seeming to come from any particular direction. While we cannot condone the humans' deceptive tactics regarding the falsified Vrex vessel, we acknowledge that their concerns about non-interference protocols have proven valid. Fleet Commander Zeev chittered in what Wolf had come to recognize as reluctant agreement. The Vrex incursion suggests they had indeed been monitoring Earth independently, perhaps planning some form of exploitation outside Council oversight. Which is exactly what we feared, Wolf pointed out, and why we took matters into our own hands. Earth couldn't afford to wait another century to be formally introduced to the galactic community, not when some members of that community were already taking an interest in us. Captain Zalara's chromatophores pulsed with what might have been amusement. Your methods were unorthodox, Commander, but I cannot argue with the results. The coordination between our forces against the Vreks demonstrated unexpected complementarity. Humans are adaptable, Wolf said simply. We work with what we have. Our technologies may seem primitive to you. Metal hulls, kinetic weapons, mechanical backups. But they're effective. And more importantly, they're different enough from yours to present unique tactical advantages. Indeed, acknowledged the emissary. The after-action analysis indicates the Vreks were unprepared for physical projectiles of the velocity and mass your vessels deployed. Their defensive systems are optimized against energy weapons and guided munitions. Just as the Confederacy ships were able to manipulate energy fields in ways we can't, Wolf added. Together, we presented a problem they couldn't solve quickly enough. The emissary's luminous form shifted slightly. This brings us to the matter at hand. The Council has convened an emergency session regarding Earth's status. Given the Vreks' interest in your world and the demonstrated capability of your species, the traditional integration timeline has been reconsidered. Wolf leaned forward. This was the moment the entire mission had been designed to create. And Earth will be offered provisional membership in the Galactic Council, effective immediately. This grants you protection under Council law and access to regulated technology exchange programs. In return, you will agree to certain operational restrictions and oversight protocols. It wasn't perfect. Wolf could already imagine the heated debates this would trigger among Earth's leadership, but it was far better than remaining isolated and vulnerable. We would need to review the specific terms, he said carefully. Earth maintains its sovereignty and defensive capabilities. Of course, the emissary confirmed. The Council does not seek to control member worlds, only to ensure stable interspecies relations. Your unique defensive technologies would actually be considered a valuable contribution to collective security, particularly given the Vreks situation. Captain Zalara interjected. I believe what the emissary is delicately attempting to communicate, Commander, is that your people's tendency to build warships that are essentially armored explosive devices powered by contained fusion reactions and equipped with primitive kinetic weapons has ironically proven to be an unexpected tactical advantage. Wolf couldn't help but smile at that characterization. One species' safety hazard is another species' innovative design philosophy. Precisely, said the emissary. Diversity of approach strengthens the Council as a whole. The Vreks have grown accustomed to countering conventional Confederacy defense systems. Your unconventional methods present a deterrent we had not anticipated. So Earth gets fast-tracked into the galactic community because we scared the hell out of everyone with our death ships and unpredictable tactics, Wolf summarized bluntly, and because we're useful against the Vreks. Fleet Commander Zeev's battle carapace flushed briefly. I would not have phrased it so directly, but essentially yes. Your species has demonstrated both capability and restraint, a rare combination. You could have continued your deception or escalated the conflict with the Vreks, but instead chose cooperation when it mattered most. Wolf nodded slowly, considering the implications. It wasn't the diplomatic victory they'd originally envisioned, but it was perhaps something more valuable: respect. I believe Earth will accept these terms, pending review, he said finally. We're not looking for domination or special treatment, just recognition as equals and the right to defend ourselves. Then we are in agreement, the emissary concluded. Formal protocols will follow, but consider this the beginning of Earth's official relationship with the broader galactic community. As the meeting concluded and preparations began for his return to the Audacity, Wolf found himself walking alongside Captain Zalara through the organic corridors of the Tick-Tick vessel. Your ship still terrifies my engineering staff, you know, Zalara commented conversationally, her translator rendering her clicking speech into smooth English. They've been running simulations since you arrived and remain convinced the Audacity should explode approximately 3 times per standard day cycle. Wolf laughed. Yet here we are. Sometimes the most reliable systems are the ones simple enough that anyone can fix them with a wrench when they break. A philosophical difference our peoples will no doubt continue to debate. Her sensory stalks quivered in what he'd come to recognize as their equivalent of amusement. Though I must admit, watching the Vreks battlecruiser's shield harmonics destabilize when struck by what amounts to a very fast rock was satisfying. Sometimes the old ways work best, Wolf agreed. Humanity has a saying, if it's stupid but it works, it isn't stupid. A wisdom I suspect the Council will be quoting frequently in the coming cycles, Zalara replied. The galaxy just became considerably more interesting with humanity's arrival. Wolf couldn't argue with that assessment. As he prepared to return to his ship, his ridiculous, dangerous, improbably effective ship, he reflected on how quickly everything had changed. 2 days ago, humanity had been isolated, unknown, and vulnerable. Now they were provisional members of a galactic civilization, with allies, enemies, and a reputation for building warships that scared even their friends. All because aliens had scanned a human warship, and what they saw had left them terrified. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a bad thing after all. The end.